everybody. It's great to be here tonight to tell you my story of how I quit the bank and I moved to Asia. I actually was a banker and I quit to come to Asia, but I'm not going to talk about that. So there's a theory that Americans are genetically enhanced to have a higher risk tolerance. And the theory is that over the past decades and hundreds of years, that the immigrants that came to America were taking very large risks to go across the sea, where there was disease and pestilence and crime. And only the people that had the most enterprising mindsets and underlying genetics came to the country. And then they obviously had children and more people came over. And I sometimes think that maybe that's why I've been such a risk taker and maybe a little bit reckless in my life. Or at least that's my excuse. So I have a lot of experiences of risk-taking, from climbing mountains like Kilimanjaro and Everest this next year, to doing an Ironman, to quitting the bank and moving to Asia. But today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my first startup that I built. So in 2010, I graduated from HKUST. Unfortunately, it wasn't good enough for INSEAD. But I built my startup there after a career in banking. I really was a banker. And it was a travel technology startup, and I had a co-founder. And we sold hotel inventory, and we eventually did pretty well. We had customers like Agoda and UOB and some other banks and things like that. But in the early days, it went really slow. And so I didn't pay myself a salary. I went through all my savings. I started building up debt. But it's kind of funny with startups, because on the one hand, I had no cash, and I had friends who were buying houses and cars and starting families. But on the other hand, we were getting investment from venture capital companies, and the valuation of my business kept going up. And so on paper, I was making more money than I ever had before. I just couldn't spend it. But the paradox with startups is that as a founder, you have to be unreasonably optimistic that you're going to succeed, even though the odds say that only about 10% of startups succeed. And I obviously was one of those unrealistically optimistic founders, and I don't know, maybe it's partly because I was American and so was my co-founder. So anyway, what happened with my startup was, unfortunately, I learned over time that I couldn't trust my co-founder. He was cheating some of our customers. He tried to cheat some of our investors, and I had to push back on that, unfortunately. And I found out at one point that he was trying to take some of my equity behind the scenes. So it got really bad and it was very stressful, but I was trapped. The investment documents that we signed said that if I left within 3 years of getting the last investment, I would lose some or all of my equity. And so that was a really tough time, and I was a bit depressed. I eventually did leave, and I got to keep most of my equity, and I stayed probably longer than I should have. And once I left, he was unchecked. I wasn't there to push back on his behavior, and he started screwing over customers, and our business almost failed. And I had a lot of stakeholders, so employees and investors, calling me and saying, Craig, you've got to do something, you've got to save the company, let's go to court, let's get lawyers. And I was talking to lawyers, and they were telling me all these things they could do, and then they were sending a bill for all it would cost me. And I said, I already don't have any money because I've been running this startup, and you want to charge me millions of dollars. And so I was trying to figure out what to do, and you have this emotional investment, you have these sunk costs, you've been building this over 6 years, and so I started talking to mentors and friends about what to do. And one of my friends I sat down with, he said, Craig, I was in a very similar situation to you about 5 years ago. I recommend you take a step back, you think about what you want to do with your life. Do you really want to go through the stress and the hardship, not to mention the expense, of going through this whole process? And it was the best advice I'd ever gotten, at least at that point in my life. And I took a day off and then a week off, and I eventually just completely separated myself for 3 months from that whole process. And that was great, and it got me to my next job, which was running a corporate startup accelerator, and that got me to the job I have now, which is running the only independent startup accelerator in Singapore and a venture capital fund. And so now I'm an investor as well. And so it all worked out really well, but it could have gone any number of different ways, right? And so I suspect that, maybe 99% of people on Earth wouldn't take some of the risks I've taken, and maybe that number applies to the people in this room. I don't know. But it's who I am. I'm an American. I'm way too optimistic, maybe, about the success that I'll possibly have, and probably a little bit too risk tolerant. But I still voted for Hillary.